And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Wednesday, March 20th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Matt Belman. We're brought to you by Sleeper. We actually have an 8-game slate ahead of us, the gold standard of slate size. 3 late games as well. 2 hours in between games. Lots of time to get your swaps ready. Hopefully we get pure chaos. It's more likely that we get very little interesting things in the 10 o'clock games, but we'll take what we can get. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow us both on Twitter. You can find our Twitter handles, so hard to say, below our bodies. What's going on, man? How are you?
Good, man. The sun's out here. I can kind of taste the spring, summer coming, especially with baseball starting yesterday. Although, what on earth is MLB thinking doing, starting the season at 6 a.m., local time? Crazy, but
Yeah,
is what it is. At least it's fun to think about that's coming here sooner rather than later. I like this slate tonight, so I'm excited to talk it out with you.
it's an interesting slate. There are some things. There's basically one big spot where it's disgusting, and it's kind of like what the Wizards were yesterday, where it's like, I don't know, everybody's in play, and I don't trust any of them. That should be a real treat. So we'll be taking it to Canada for that one. There's also a lot on this slate that just looks downright dreadful, and we're gonna get to that too. You just want to dive in? We have, in some places we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we do. I feel like it's definitely one of those slates where there's a couple games. I don't even know if there's more than like 3 games with a lot to talk about, and the rest don't. I guess that should hamper my excitement for the slate, just in the sense that like all the plays I really like are all the plays everyone really likes. So
Yeah.
It's hard to get too excited about a slate like that. It's just impossible to get away from Toronto and Sacramento, that whole side. So yeah, let's get into it.
312% ownership going to Toronto and Sacramento. No other team is projected for more than 87. Sacramento is 35 percentage points ahead of that one, and that's second. There's almost 200 going to Toronto. That's basically 25% of the field. We'll break that down in a bit. But first, we're leading off with the Miami Heat, 1.5-point underdogs in Cleveland, 204 total. Now, this game, luckily for us, although I wish this was a 10 o'clock start, but this one got some late news. Bam Adebayo, questionable. Jimmy Butler, questionable. Nikola Jovic, questionable. We have no Duncan Robinson, out with back discomfort, which is, I didn't think a word they would put on the injury report, but whatever. Not back, obviously, discomfort. No ownership really coming into the Miami side. 8% to Butler, 14 to Butler on FanDuel. Butler's also the only guy above 4% optimal in the boom bust tool. So we obviously need that news. If they both don't play, dramatically changes Miami. Even if just Bam doesn't play, then we start talking about whatever rando center is going to get the start for Miami at that point, whether that's Thomas Bryant or Orlando Robinson, who is with the team, or potentially Nikola Jovic if they want to be super weird. Who knows? If Jimmy Butler is out and Bam is in, kind of doesn't do as much as you would want it to do. Do you like anything from Miami as they're presently constituted?
I do not. Just another team on this slate. Bad matchup. If the questionable tags play out where more guys are out, then yeah, they'll start to look appealing. But as of now, not really. I mean, I think the more likely outcome is that Butler plays and Bam doesn't, I guess. Or I would think that Butler playing is the most likely outcome of anything. Bam is 50-50. I have no idea. So if Bam's out, everyone looks better. Butler would look really good then. His price is down. No hero still. So like Butler and Rozier, I don't know if that would also put someone like Thomas Bryant in play. I don't know if we've seen Bam out for a while with Kevin Love out, have we?
No, he doesn't really miss much time.
I feel like he's going to play.
Bam?
Yeah.
So the prop market would disagree with you. When I first did my rerun, my Jimmy Butler points prop was miles from where it actually is. So I started running some data on what Butler would look like in this spot. No hero on, no Bam on. And we see Butler get a jump to like 27, 28, 29. I don't remember the specific numbers. It doesn't matter for me right now. But like a 4 or 5% bump to his usage rate. And if I hit that, that gets me right to where that prop is. So it's leading me to think that the betting market, at least the prop market for Butler, is assuming that Bam is out. And if that's the case, then he's going to look very different than he does right now. The 8% ownership will certainly go up a bit. We'll find some value from one of the centers. I'm guessing it would be Thomas Bryant. That just, considering he's been the guy they've been going to lately. I mean, we've had Thomas Bryant play 4 straight games, averaging somewhere in like 10 to 17 minutes, depending on how much Bam is actually out there. You get 24 minutes of Thomas Bryant at 4K, and he immediately becomes one of the better options on today's slate.
He does, but it's like an old proverb you and Adam used to talk about. When you spend out on these value centers, there's so much opportunity cost in not getting to Sabonis, Ayton, Chet Holmgren, let alone Jonte Porter, who's the same price. But still, I think they would become really comparable then because it's a bad spot for Bryant. Like, the only thing to Bryant's side on that is like, because it's a bad spot, they're big. Like, Cleveland's big, especially with Allen. They're not as big as they usually are, I guess, but kind of means I think Bryant will get his fair share of run. But still, a lot of opportunity cost at center. It would put him certainly in play. It would make Butler a really, really strong play. And yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Not sure it would matter too much to anybody else. Like, I don't think anybody else is going to get enough minutes bump or like rate changes to really go from wildly uninteresting where they are now. I think it's just going to be basically Butler and whoever starts at center, with the leading assumption being Thomas Bryant.
Yeah, 100% with you there.
Oh, it's bleak though. But the good news is, I guess, this is a 7 o'clock start. We're going to know if Bam and Butler are in by 6:30 and be able to make our changes accordingly. But I have Bam in. I am assuming that I will be making that change sometime in the next hour and a half.
Yes, it doesn't really matter because you'll know.
Yeah. If this were a 10 o'clock, I mean, I wish it were a 10 o'clock game. Like, I want all of this news as late as possible today. Not the case. Not the case. It's Karis LeVert season, though, for the Cleveland Cavaliers, who continue to be without so much of their rotation. Donovan Mitchell, out. Evan Mobley, out. Max Strus, out. Dean Wade out. But they've been out for so long that prices for Cleveland have largely risen. And this matchup is two slow teams and two teams that definitely lean defensive. 17% ownership coming into a $7,100 Karis LeVert. Been playing really well as of late, at least from a DFS perspective. I think that ownership is fully justified. He's 16% optimal in our tools. No real ownership coming into the rest of Cleveland. Isaac Okoro is getting some love on FanDuel. I think that's just a position and price thing. He's obviously going to play a ton. Let's start with LeVert. How are you feeling there?
Was totally wrong on him last game. It's sad. I was talking to one of my Cleveland buddies earlier today. Like, LeVert is like better than Garland. Like, that is just sad. Like, what is happening? Also, just watching a guy like Jalen Green last night, like, man, he is starting to become good.
I'll push back on that, but go ahead.
Maybe not efficient, but he certainly has shown flashes of being good with upside. We'll touch on that in a minute. As far as Cleveland goes tonight, LeVert still looks really good. Price up a little bit, but he was 40% owned at 6,900. So I get it. It's a much tougher spot here, but still wildly in play. I don't think he's a must play. I don't think anything from Cleveland looks must at all because of the spot, other spots on the slate. LeVert would be someone I'm totally fine getting to, even though I just shit on him a little bit. I think Garland's worth a look in tournaments just because we know he's got upside. He put up 62 games ago. So 7,800. I don't love it, but in play, if nothing else, point guard is way too deep for me to actually want to get there. Okoro, I wrote him up as a contrarian piece because he was coming in with a lot of leverage. I'm not sure if that still holds, but either way, I mean, certainly not a priority. That's it. I mean, Cleveland doesn't look great. I think LeVert and then Garland way lower down and then bust.
Yeah, I got 13% of LeVert. I think that ownership is about right. Somewhere in that 15% range. I have him in and around like the 20th best option today. So I think that jives with where the ownership is. And then I have scattered shares of Okoro, Niang, Garland, but very minimal exposure. Here's my thoughts on Jalen Green.
Yeah, let me hear it.
It doesn't really, we got a second. And I don't want to be like, oh, I knew that he was going to smash, because that sounds dumb. But basically, I mean, he is one of the quickest dudes with the ball on the perimeter. Like, the amount of guys that can keep him in check and keep him from getting any sort of penetration is minimal in the league. He's got an unbelievable burst, unbelievable first step. He's just a really poor finisher normally. When you face the Wizards in 2 of your last 3 games with no real centers, then missing Kyle Kuzma, like, they just didn't have anybody that was ever going to be able to stop him on the perimeter from getting into the paint. And they had no resistance at the rim to stop him from doing the one thing that he doesn't do very well, which is try to actually finish those buckets. He was 11 of 14 at the rim in both of those games against Washington. Like, you can really see the script for him for a bad perimeter defense and poor rim protection, where Jalen Green is just like, when he could have the ball more because of Şengün being gone, he's just going to get to the rim whenever he wants, because that's just sort of that's his main skill. I'm not surprised to see those 2 games happen that way. If he would have gotten past that first line of defense and then, like, I don't know, like pick a really good rim protecting center is still there on the blocks, I don't think that we see anything even remotely close to that, because he's going to run into that wall. There was no wall. It was just a wide open field for him.
Okay, I'm with that. And I'm not saying that I want to build my franchise around Jalen Green.
Yeah.
But I would rather build my franchise around Jalen Green than Darius Garland right now. And I never thought I would say that a month ago, let alone like 2 years ago. So that's the context I was putting it into. Jalen Green is not consistent. He's inefficient, but he's still really young. And there aren't that many guys that, like, you could say, like, he's clearly got upside. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it won't pan out. For most of them, it doesn't pan out. But you need guys like that in order to, be really good in the NBA. You need to be lucky with a guy like that.
If he can start getting that shot to fall a little bit more, get that finishing at the rim in and around average, because he's like 25th percentile. If he can get that 3-point shot up to like 35%, then you start looking at this guy that can really create his own shot and can be close to efficient with it. That's the upside here. I mean, we're talking about a guy, he's 22. He just turned 22. I see the tools. He just hasn't been able to like get to that point yet, but his creation on his own, the amount of guys that can stop him on the perimeter are minimal. I just don't know if he ever finds the like. I don't know if he ever gets there. Could look like an incredible 6-man soon enough. Like he could be a really nice Jordan Clarkson type in the future if he doesn't get it.
The argument against him being young is like there's a lot of good young players, and it's not just about how good he is; it's about how good other guys are around him. Like, I think Garland is definitely the safer choice between them, but he's also hurt a lot. And I think Houston laughs at Cleveland. Contracts aside, Garland's also a max contract guy. So I don't know. It was more just in the context of Garland, but your points are well taken.
Yeah. I just like when I saw those games, it didn't change anything for my projections. It was just, I knew that he was just going to beat these dudes constantly to the rim over and over again. If Amin Thompson was able to do it, Jalen Green's going to do it better than him.
Yeah, so I'd like to think he was also just really good last night.
Yeah, he couldn't miss early. Like if his shot is falling, you're dead. Because if you have to get out on him any further, he's gone. He's going to blow by you no matter what. Especially when you're Jared Butler or whatever Champagne's on that team. Like they had no real NBA players yesterday.
They did not. And he had an amazing first quarter. And then Houston was slow to start the second quarter. They scored 29 points in the final 6 minutes of the second. Green had 15 or something.
Yeah. Just when he gets downhill, man, he is a problem. When he gets to the rim, it's a random number generator. He's just throwing shit up and hoping it goes. All right. We're done with one of the uglier games. Let's go to one that is less ugly, depending on how you look at it. The Pacers are 10.5 point. Think about these lines. 10.5 point favorites, Pacers. 10.5 point dogs, the Bucks. 11-point favorites, Sacramento. 15-point dogs, Utah. 11-point dogs, Memphis. 12-point favorites, Clippers. Even the Sixers are knocking on the door of double digits. The only game that even projects as mildly competitive is the first one that we talked about.
I mean,
March basketball, NBA, baby.
Late season NBA at its finest. But honestly, some of these games are going to blow out. Maybe a couple more than usually blow out, but maybe not. You know what I mean? Lines are just lines. They're just projections. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. I mean, I don't, a bunch of these games are going to be close. That's for sure, at least in my opinion. So,
yeah, some of these double-digit dogs are going to win outright today.
Yeah, I mean, most likely.
Hope you're on the right side of that one. So the Pacers are 10-point favorites in Detroit, 235 total. This is the highest total on today's slate. And we have most of the Pacers coming in around 10 to 15% owned. Aaron Nesmith, Jalen Smith, Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam, TJ McConnell, and Tyrese Halliburton. Even Obi Toppin's getting a little bit of love. When you look at Indy, do you have someone that stands out, or are you more of I would probably just take whatever I can get here in a good spot?
Probably take whatever I can get. Halliburton's kind of the same story, although his price is down, so I get it. He's been getting just totally torn apart on social media. A couple of things I saw recently where he said something yesterday in an interview that he's just a prop on DraftKings helping people win money. And someone quote tweeted him. He's like, you're not even a prop anymore. You were banned a month ago. You're now an op. So yeah, I mean, he just hasn't been good. I also heard that his superstar free trial ran out. So that's why he sucks now.
That's good.
He has not been great since the first couple months of the season. I get it. He's starting to play more. He's been a little bit better, but the opportunity cost at point guard for me is too big there. The one guy that, and I hate to say this, stands out, I guess you could say, is Jalen Smith. So cheap. It's the same thing with him. I mean, He's not going to play a ton of minutes, but he's productive when he's on the court. He's 3,900. He's not going to win you any tournaments, but it's about what else he allows you to get to.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good guard plays tonight, so I don't mind spending down there. Forward is much weaker in my eyes. Yeah, it's a really good spot, but nothing like overly stands out from Indiana to me. How about yourself?
I kind of see it like the ownership. I have 5 guys in double digits, but they're all between 11 and 17% owned. So, or all exposure for me. Like I've got 17% of Neesmith. He's shooting guard, small forward. That's just like really good flexibility. 2xing Jalen Smith, but that's still only 15%. Got 10% of Turner, 10% of McConnell, 15% of Pascal Siakam. The guy that I'm not really getting to is Tyrese Halliburton. We have him 17% optimal, 17% owned. Fontecchio out, so we're going to get to that in a section. Taj Gibson out. What do you play? 1 game for the Pistons and get hurt already? I can't get to Halliburton right now. And I have him projected well. Like, he hasn't been playing well. He can't make a 3 to save his life lately. He's 1.2 fantasy points per minute over the last 30 days. I have him at 1.3 in this game, and I still only get to 2% of him. I don't know what I would have to do to get to Halliburton here. Maybe facing the Pistons makes you play better. It certainly wouldn't shock me. But he's the one guy that I'm having trouble getting to. I'd love to see him start making some shots. I just prefer it to not be today.
Yeah, and honestly, tonight, because he's projected well, it's not even about him. It's about Shea, Damian Lillard, De'Aaron Fox. Like, point guard is really, really loaded, especially up top. So, like, there's a ton of opportunity cost. Cade Cunningham going with Halliburton here. So, on a lot of slates recently.
Curry.
Yeah, right, exactly. On a lot of slates, Halliburton might look better here at a falling price tag, but not for me. And Indiana looks good as, like, I don't want to sell them short and call them filler pieces, but that's more or less what they are for me.
I agree. I don't have any one guy that I want specifically, but I think I'm going to have one Indiana dude in most of the things that I do.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I can handle that. I mean, a matchup against the Pistons is great. They're 26th in defensive rating, around 10th in pace. Like, this is a nice spot for Indy. 123 implied total is, I mean, it's either them, OKC, Indy, Sacramento, OKC are all going to have very similar implied totals. Indy's at 123 right now. We should have a lot of fantasy points scored for the Pacers.
This is definitely one where I could see Detroit winning this game, though. Like, I don't think Indiana deserves to be 10-point road favorites to my high school JV team. I mean,
I don't know. Fontecchio out now, too. Not that he's like some giant line mover, but we're starting to run into a bunch of names that you don't want out there for the Pistons.
I was waiting for you to say Taj Gibson out, and then I was just going to be like, okay, no.
So we just got Fontecchio out. He was projected for 5% ownership on both sides. So he wasn't much, but we do have to now fill in like 32 new minutes for Detroit. Cade projected for 17% ownership. Jalen Duren projected for 15. They're the only 2 guys north of 10% optimal. We got a lot to talk about here now. We don't have updated data for it, obviously, because this Fontecchio news just dropped. But I will say this, and I think we could say it regardless of what ends up happening to this lineup. I had 40% Cade. I think he looks fantastic today.
He looks great here. He's the cheapest of those point guards. A lot cheaper than most of them. So I get that. I don't think he's my favorite of the bunch, but he's not my least favorite either. I think Fox is probably my favorite of like the 5 point guards up top, because I'm counting Maxey with shooting guard. Oh no, Maxey is the only point guard also tonight. So
yeah,
I like Maxey probably similar to Cunningham. I like Fox the most. I like both those guys a little bit more than Dame and Shea, and Halliburton's my least favorite, just amongst those guys personally. That said, he looks really good here. Kind of worried that Detroit just sucks because they already suck and now they're missing half their team. Asar Thompson also out for the year. Isaiah Stewart gone for the year to go along with the guys you just mentioned. I mean, I'm not sure what Detroit's going to look like here. Like, is Evan Fournier a thing?
Stanley Amudi season, baby.
He's so bad. Like, no. I mean,
I already have 15%. That's probably going to get worse now.
I get it. It's the same thing as Jalen Smith, where it's like you're not rostering for himself. You're rostering him for. I'm not going to do it. He's so bad. I can't do it.
He's going to end up being like 10% owned, I would guess. Just because he got the start last time out. He played 34 minutes against the Celtics. No reason to suspect he's not playing 30 plus here now that Fontecchio is out. He's a 0.75 fantasy point per minute guy. That's
It's
not
so
fun, but this is a much better matchup than Boston.
When you guys were talking about him the other day, I can't remember who you were doing the show with, but I was listening and I was like, Mudiay, and I was like, is Emmanuel Mudiay back in the league? I could not think about who it was. I know, same. I could not, and then I finally remembered it was Stanley Mudiay.
So we need to figure out who we think is going to be the fourth or the fifth starter here. Obviously, Cade, Ivy, Duren. I don't understand how it could not be Stanley Umude here, considering he started the last game and we're doing it again. But Beef Stew started the game against Boston. He's done now. Taj Gibson started the third quarter in Beef Stew's place. He's done now. Tosan, bunch of consonants and letters. Evan Fournier. Troy Brown. Who's gonna? Somebody's gonna become a more interesting play by starting for the Pistons today. I don't have a great feel for who that's going to be.
I feel like it probably is Fournier. What if they just go balls to the wall and start Wiseman?
It might be Chimezie Metu, who is available to make his Pistons debut today.
Okay. I was going to say, what if they just throw everything out the window and go with Wiseman?
I don't think they can do Wiseman
they can't
together.
They can't, and they won't, but it would be fun to see that. I don't think it'll be Metu, but I think it will be Fournier.
I think it might be Troy Brown.
Yeah, could see that also. I have no real educated guess.
It might be. I don't know how the hell do you say that dude's name?
The guy from Princeton?
Maybe.
Was he on the Grizzlies earlier this year? Yeah.
He was. I learned how to say it earlier. Tauson Ewoma. Played the final 18 minutes of the game against the Celtics. Now, obviously, that game was at hand, but the moment Taj subbed out in the third quarter, Ewoma did not sub back out again. So he's 3,400 power forward only, probably like a 0.75 guy. Could be him. Bam out, Butler in. Jovic in as well. Whoever the fifth starter is for the Pistons becomes a value play that you can get to. Most of the guys that they can put in that spot aren't great per minute dudes. If it happens to be Fournier, because he's small forward, I do think he starts to become a little bit more interesting. He's a little bit better than Brown and Ewoma. But I think the priorities here are going to be Cunningham, Duren, and Stanley Umude.
Yeah. And Jaden Ivey.
Not a guy that I have a ton of. Little surprised, though. 6,600 point guard, shooting guard. I don't think he looks bad. 6% optimal, 3% owned. Could be a really nice flyer in the 80,000 person contest on DraftKings.
Yeah, at least worth mentioning for tournament purposes, I guess I should have said.
I agree. Anything else you want to touch on here for Detroit? Anybody you wanted to dig in on? Like any thoughts on Duren or anything like that?
No, they all look good. This game looks really appealing. I personally like the Toronto-Sacramento game slightly more, but
yeah,
the more news we get, like the more you got to really start looking at Detroit.
It's not fun. What is fun, guys? Our schedule for the rest of the day. NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. You got to hit that like button so that you can see it. But they will go from 6 to 7, taking you all the way up until lock. And then we hop on over to Playback exclusively. Playback.tv/Stochastic. Come hang out. Watch the games with us. I'll be there with Greg, Matt Kajeski popping in to talk some college basketball. We'll talk first point scoring props. We'll talk news across that hour and potentially even more time. Who knows? We'll talk anything that you really want to talk about. We can talk about it. And we're watching the games on League Pass. If you have League Pass, great. You could link it up and join us. We're all watching the same stream. If you don't, cross your fingers. You might be able to get one of our 40 VIP passes that we could hand out so you guys can watch along with us. It's a great time. It's a great hang. I think you guys will enjoy it. Maybe we'll do a giveaway. Click the link in chat or the one in the description if you need that link to playback, but it's playback.tv/stochastic. The Milwaukee Bucks are 10-point dogs in Boston, 225 total. That might sound like a staggering line to you guys. However, it is only happening because Giannis Antetokounmpo not going to be playing for this one. He is out today. Got ruled out very early. Everybody else that's normally available is. We're getting around 18% ownership to Dame, around 13 to Bobby Portis, and then single digits to everybody else. If you're playing Dame on FanDuel, he is 29% owned. I assume you're a Dame fan, or at least minimally a Dame fan here, in that this is his team today.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not about Dame himself, whether I play him or not. It's about the other guys around him, but he looks like a top 5 play on the slate, like undoubtedly. The problem is that he looks like a top 10 play on the slate. The problem is 5 other point guards also look like top 10 plays on the slate. So you can't play them all. He looks amongst the best, though. I wouldn't fault anyone for prioritizing him. No Giannis here. It's a tough spot, but I mean, it's Dame, so it doesn't really matter. We've seen him in the past. When he starts to get going, like, watch out. If he starts to get going, if this is like the start of a run for him, he's way too cheap. I'm not really buying that, so he's not an ultimate priority for me in this spot. On a lot of slates, he would be, but just too many other good options around him. So again, he looks great, just not the ultimate priority for me. I really want to get your take on Middleton.
I don't have any. I would like to. I have no idea how many minutes he could play. Like, I don't think they're just going to let him rip. I don't know what the incentive would be for that. They obviously just need him to be healthy in like 3 weeks. So I gave him 25 minutes. I think he could probably play like upwards of 28 today. But you need a perfect game from him too in that scenario.
Yeah, no, especially in this spot.
Yeah, he's also going to, depending on how the Boston news breaks, this could look like a pretty rough spot defensively too with no Giannis out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Andrew in chat says they had a hard minutes restriction on him before the injury. I'm guessing they would again. Different injury this time. This was a sprained ankle, if I believe. I don't think this had anything to do with the hamstring or quad or whatever. But even still, like they have no incentive to play him minutes that don't really matter all that much. They just got to get his cardio right over the next couple of weeks. You want him to be able to play as many minutes as possible in mid-April. But I assume he's on some sort of minutes limit.
Yes, same.
There's not a lot to talk about here. It's Portis season for me, even though I think Boston's going to put him on lock. But I have 27% right now. Went crazy last time out without Giannis. I assume he's still not starting. He's 6K, power forward center. I'll take the shot because that man is going to try to get his shots up. That's for sure.
Yeah. I am also worried about Boston just like shutting down everything for Milwaukee more or less. But putting that aside, he looks really good here. No Giannis. We saw what his upside is. Not getting a ton of ownership, so a nice differentiator as well.
Boston has a Q tag on Jaylen Brown, a Q tag on Sam Hauser, and a Q tag on Drew Holiday. The highest owned guy for Boston on DraftKings is 3% owned Tatum. He's also 4% optimal. The only guy I got to is Tatum. It's very minimally. There's basically no chance I'll have anybody from Boston with any volume if everybody's in. If Brown and Hauser and Holiday are all out, then Boston will look very different in this spot. But it's impossible to really talk about them. And if they're at full strength, it's just not good.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I can't speak much on Boston because they got Q tags. If they're all in, don't really want much of them. They're definitely a wait and see type of team.
Yeah, it's like and it's a trickle down thing. Like every one of those dudes unlock a little bit more of something else. There's no way to really go through all those permutations.
Yeah, exactly.
So keep your eyes peeled for Boston. That'll be a live before lock discussion, probably, or a playback discussion if we don't get that news until 7:01. First spot we really have to talk about, Sacramento Kings, 11-point favorites in Toronto, 233 total. Kings are without Trey Lyles and now without Kevin Huerter, left shoulder dislocation. 20% ownership to Fox, 20 to Sabonis, around 20 to Keegan Murray, 15 to Keon Ellis, and 36 to Malik Monk. start wherever you would like. Kings look good against Toronto.
Yeah, Monk's getting too much love, but kind of reminds me of LeVert the other day. So I don't hate it. I just think he's probably overowned. It is what it is. Fox and Sabonis, I mean, they look like two of the top 5 plays on the slate, no matter how you slice it. I slightly prefer Fox to Dame. They project for exactly the same amount of fantasy points. It's basically the same price, so I don't really care about the $100, but it doesn't hurt that Fox is $100 cheaper. So I like both them a lot in a game environment that I think is really conducive for a lot of fantasy points. So
yeah.
Again, other spots have emerged that I think is going to pull ownership. I don't think there's any question to me. This is the best spot on the slate. Monk is not a priority to me like Fox and Sabonis is. The one thing about Monk, though, that I think that needs to be pointed out and why that ownership is high, you look through the tools and the top players on the slate, there's 2 small forwards to be talked about, and that's it. Monk and Butler. So there really
Stanley
is
Moody.
No one else. Yeah. Well, I guess a Moody now.
Basically the same guy.
Though, yeah, right. I mean, everyone will be just jumping in to lock him in. But no, in all seriousness, the fact that he's small forward eligible also boosts him a lot. So small forward's really weak. That's why Monk's pulling this ownership in my eyes. I hate it. He's never a guy I like playing when he's chalky like this, but he's also been consistently pretty good with upside. No herder, as you mentioned. Great spot. I don't know. I like him. I don't like him as much as the other two. And the other guy I like a lot, Keon Ellis, going to be starting. I mean, he's definitely someone that I'm prioritizing here. Hate saying that with so many good point guard options, but realistically, like with how many good center options there are also, like I'm probably not playing. Well, I don't know if I probably won't play 3 point guards anyways. It's a really tough roster construction, like with all the good plays, point guard and center. So yeah, I like a lot of Sacramento. One guy I want to call out in tournaments, like if you're playing that $4, Jamius Ramsey, really cheap, not getting love. That's about it. How about you?
We'll get to him in a second. Okay. I'm right around the field on Fox, right around the field on Sabonis. I think they both look great as pay-up options. Right around the field on Keegan Murray. He's a guy I get to regularly. But you shouted out the 2 things that were most important to me. Like, I don't think there's much to say about Fox and Sabonis. They look good, and everybody knows how to play Fox and Sabonis. I've got 30% of Keon Ellis. That's twice the field. He's 3,700, point guard eligible. Not a great per minute guy, but minutes are going to be there now with Kevin Huerter out. And they were already there with Kevin Huerter in. And then I have 7% of a 36% owned Malik Monk. I think he's wildly overowned. We have him with negative 16 leverage. We do have him as 19% optimal, but he seems like the easiest guy to get away from on Sacramento. The one thing, you just have to dodge the, oh no, Malik Monk is cooking game. Like, I'll take my chances on that. Has he been great lately? Yeah, he has. But at 36% ownership, I think I'm more likely to win if I'm a little lighter.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Again, I don't care that much about the ownership of one player, but certainly he would be the guy I'd point out. One guy, just to throw it back a little bit, that we didn't even mention when talking about Miami, that could be a look, is Orlando Robinson at 3K.
Yeah. It could easily get the start over Thomas Bryant.
Right.
They could do any random stuff.
There's been a couple of slates this year where both of them have been viable, like on the same slate.
Yeah. I hope that that's not the case today.
Same.
Toronto is getting all of the ownership. No Scotty Barnes, no RJ Barrett, no Chris Boucher, no Jakob Poeltl, and Emmanuel quickly out for personal reasons. 45% ownership to Jordan Nwora, 40 to Jonte Porter, 20 to Agbaji, Olynyk, and Bruce Brown, 15 to Gary Trent and Grady Dick. I think I mentioned everybody. 5% to Jameis Ramsey, who I am over the field on and very intrigued by. I have a ton of this game. We're projecting 193% ownership. I have 201. It's a little bit distributed differently, but this is the best spot that you can get to because of the guys that are missing in the pricing. It's not going to feel fun, though.
No, it's not, but they do look like the best team on the slate for DFS purposes. Bunch of guys that I think are getting too much ownership, but I think it's all warranted for, for good reason. Yeah. I'll start with, I guess Kelly O, who I like quite a bit here. He's not getting the most ownership of all these guys at all. 6,500, the power forward eligibility really helps. Jonte Porter, really cheap. he's like as overowned as Malik Monk. So I'm interested to get your takes there. I think Agbaji, he's coming in with leverage. He's just so hard to click that button. He's just not really productive. I'm interested in Gary Trent. Surprised to see him as low in the tools as he is. Um, I think Cole have the ball in his hands a lot and get up a ton of shots. Whether those shots go in, who knows? But I think he's got a really high ceiling in this spot. So I'm interested in him. He's probably the one guy that I guess, surprised is not pulling more ownership. How about you?
A little bit, I guess. I would have expected something a little bit higher there. I'm with you.
I
And
don't
I'm
know.
getting
Who's
a
your
little bit more, so that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and then Bruce Brown. I guess the thing with Toronto is what makes it, I guess, similar to last night with the Wizards, but not totally the same. They still have a bunch of guys, and they're not like all dirt cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Bruce Brown, Gary Trent, Kelly Olynyk, they have real prices. Even Grady Dick at 4,700. That's like relatively real. My biggest stand so far is Jordan Nwora. I'm a little bit over 50%, just 3,800 at power forward. A productive guy when he's out on the floor, usually. I understand why that ownership is coming in, even with the negative leverage. I'm very light on Jonte Porter. Center only 4K. That ownership is about to come down now because of Miami. Like what Jonte Porter brought to the table is now going to get duplicated by someone from Miami. So that will give you an option there. Might make him look a little bit more interesting, honestly. The guys that I'm most over on, though, unfortunately, it's Akbaji. It's the price tag, it's the minutes, it's the MPE. He's horrible on a per minute basis, but opportunity will certainly be there. I'm a bit over the field on him. I'm neutral on Kelly Olynyk, but I'm fine with that. He's probably the best player on the team, which is kind of crazy to think about in the grand scheme of things. The guy that I'm most light on, though, ignoring the Porter ownership, is Bruce Brown. And I don't know what to do there. I don't trust him. I don't have any idea if Toronto trusts him. He could play 38 minutes today, and I wouldn't be surprised. They could just go to young dudes, and I wouldn't be surprised. So he's the trickiest one for me. I think Gary Trent and Grady Dick are like the easiest names to want to click. It just feels like those guys are going to play like 32 minutes. I like the positionality for both. Trent sees a massive usage bump when all those other real ball handlers are off the floor. So I'm over the field on both of them. And then Jameis Ramsey, 3,200 shooting guard, could play additional minutes. I only went to 19. We have him in at 20. We only have him 5% optimal. I actually dug into his G League rates to make my tweaks before I went back to look at it. Had to bring down his assist rate a little bit and tweak his rebounding rate a little bit. But he's a guy that will have the ball in his hands and gets shots up in the G League. They don't exactly have a lot of high usage dudes in this lineup. So I would not be surprised at all to see him at least get the opportunity to put shots up. Whether or not they go in might be a different story, but he does feel pretty sneaky to me at 5%.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Jules Bernard, like of last night. Got
Yeah.
hot late, got extra run because the game got a little out of hand. Could easily happen here. And it was also a spot last night where like all the Houston studs minus Van Vliet got there. Like I could see that with Sacramento also. And then you want the expensive Kings, the cheap Raptors. It's not always going to work out like that, but I think that's a very likely outcome in this spot also.
Anything else you want to touch on for Toronto? This is the best game on the slate.
No, I will say though, like you said, as news comes out, like we got with Detroit, Miami, does make Toronto just look a little bit less appealing on paper, but a more appealing in terms of their ownership falling. So, yeah.
Utah Jazz are 15-point dogs in OKC, 232 total. Highest owned dude for Utah is 6% Colin Sexton. Highest optimal guy is 6% Keontae George. They're a little bit more owned on FanDuel. This spot is terrible. Utah isn't very good. No Lauri Markkanen, potentially no John Collins. If Collins is out, then I think we could talk about Walker Kessler looking pretty good at 5,200. But if Collins is in, I would prefer to basically have zero of Utah.
Yeah, I'm with that. Just a bad spot. Pricing's way up. I guess for just time constraints, like what's your take on Utah if Collins is out? I know we don't have the data or anything, but do you have any like off the top of your head strong takes?
I think Walker Kessler is probably going to grab 28, 29 minutes at that point. Why not? I assume he just starts at center and has to play normal starter run. They don't really have anybody else behind him that they care about all that much. Oh, was it Omer Yurtsevin or something maybe? So we would start having a conversation about Walker Kessler being a solid play, but I don't think that anybody becomes amazing. Maybe like Lucas Sam now. I don't. It's probably just Kessler for me, and then still a little bit of Sexton.
Yeah, I think Kessler then does become really appealing in like the $4. So I think
Yeah,
he's got a low floor, but a monster ceiling. I mean, he's got 10x at 5,200, like in him.
yeah.
Doesn't happen that often, but he has that in him.
He's got a real size that could play a big role. From a rebounding perspective, this is a good matchup for him. But I don't have much else to say here about Utah.
Yeah, same.
OKC, it's the same guys we always want to talk about, but I've got some pretty big stands on Chet, on Jalen Williams. I've got 20% of Shea, 10% of Giddey. It's the starters and nobody else like it normally is. But which ones do you like the most?
Well, I like Shea the most, but I like Shea and Chet the most, but it's just so hard to get to those guys. So because of just the position eligibility, it's Jalen Williams. If he were small forward eligible, like it would make him one of the best plays on the slate. He's not, but he still is power forward eligible. So I like him the most, but none of them are like tier one priorities for me. They all look really, really good. If I were multi-entering, I'm sure I would have, at least to the field on all these guys. So they look great here. I mean, yeah, blowout concerns, but there you have that in every game. Never mind the team that's going to be doing the blowing out. So yeah, I couldn't fault you for having any real strong takes on either of these three guys. What is it?
So I've got like 39% of Chet, so big stand, 35% of Jalen Williams, big stand, neutral Giddey, 20% Shea. I'm very happy with where I'm coming in for OKC. 29th ranked Utah defense, 10th in pace. This spot is great. I'm going to cross my fingers and hope two of these Thunder dudes just smack Utah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they probably will. It's just, again, the slate is loaded with point guards and centers, so you got to choose wisely.
Sleeper is the sponsor of this show. If you're interested in signing up at Sleeper, click the link in the chat or in the description. You can get up to a $500 deposit match bonus. Whatever you put in, they'll match. If you've got $371 in, they'll match $371. They've got dynamic payouts on some of their plays, so you can get up to 100x your money if you piece those plays together perfectly. You could use Odds Shopper to find more plays. I'll talk about them in a little bit. But to me, the real appeal of Sleeper is just trying to take that bonus and figure out if that's the place that you want to play long term. I think you'll very much enjoy it. They're running free squares basically every day. I know they have one today. That will help keep your costs down at the site. Anytime you can get a free square, you want to use it. It's not going to make you rich, but it is going to make it a little bit more likely that you cash that entry for the day. So click the link in chat, click the link in the description, whichever is easier for you. If you haven't signed up at Sleeper yet, now is the perfect time to do so. If you, whatever money that you can get together for that deposit bonus, it's the best deposit bonus in the industry. Memphis Grizzlies are 11-point dogs in Golden State, taking on the Warriors, 219 total, I guess, in San Francisco. 10% ownership to GG Jackson. Everybody else is single digits behind that. Everybody is single digit optimal for Memphis. Spot's okay, but with Bane and Jackson in, they really monopolize usage. I'd be happy to get to shares of Bane or Jackson, but I don't see anybody on Memphis immediately standing out.
Memphis is the bane of my existence.
The Desmond Bane of your existence?
Yes. Thank you. Every time we do a show, Memphis is on the slate. Like, why? I hate this team. Now their injury report isn't quite as bad as it's been. It's just a bad spot. Now Bane is back. So, Bane and Jaren Jackson are going to be two guys that are like in play on every slate they're on, but they're priced where they should be. So not priorities. I wouldn't mind if I had 8,200 left and got to Jaren Jackson, but I'm not building around him.
Yeah. Like I have 3% of Jackson, 6% of Desmond Bane, 4% of GG Jackson. It's just, scattered amounts of a couple of these
And
guys.
like,
It just, I don't know.
I say that like this doesn't seem like the type of slate to me where I'm going to build and have like 8,200 left. You know what I
No,
mean? Like it's just
no,
not
not
that
at
type of
all.
slate.
So I have very little to say about Memphis. This is the first of the 10 o'clock games, by the way. Golden
Yeah,
State.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I literally had nothing.
Okay. Highest owned guy for Golden State is 6% owned Trace Jackson Davis. He's 9% optimal. That's the highest mark on Golden State as well. 4,900 center only. Draymond gets to 11% on FanDuel, the only guy in double digits for anything. Actually got to a 9% of Steph, a guy I very rarely get to. To me, he's the best thing that I can get from the Warriors, but this is another team that just does not look very good. They're at full strength. Everybody's price is about where it should be. I don't like it.
Sam, this is another one like Steph 8,700. Never a bad play, but
No.
if he were shooting guard eligible, I would boost him up a ton here. But at point guard only, he's just competing with too many other guys. He certainly has it in him, but it's not going to be where I go tonight. You just look at a guy like Tyrese Maxey, who we haven't even talked about yet, just looks quite a bit better at the same price. So, yeah, Golden State, no. I guess Trace Jackson Davis, you mentioned, is worth calling out. Coming in with leverage, the tools like him, it's just, I can't see myself prioritizing him with Sabonis, Ayton. You mentioned Holmgren and Jonte Porter, the Heat guys, Jalen Duren. There's a lot of good plays on this slate.
There are. They're just not in the late games, unfortunately.
No, they're not.
All right. Final thing to touch on, and then we're going to zip through these final two games. We've got 1 day left for this promo. It ends tomorrow at noon. If you haven't used Odd Shopper yet, if you are on the sports betting side or on the pick'em side, the promo code is Madness, MADNESS. You can get our Odd Shopper package for $1 for a week. You are leaving money on the table if you don't take advantage of this offer. $1. That's the most you hate it the first day, you cancel, you're only out $1. We take a market-based approach to beating the books. All you have to do, load it up. We've got parlay builders and card builders for all of the pick'em sites. We can help you with boosted plays. We can help you try to clear free bets in a more efficient manner. There's a lot going on at Odd Shopper. Articles as well if you're looking for some plays. You can see the graphic on the screen. It ends tomorrow at noon. When the tournament tips off tomorrow, that is what you need. Sign up for Odd Shopper. We just got some news from the Boston side. Hauser, unlikely to play. Drew Holiday, unlikely to play. Boston looking a little bit better than they did 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, Dame also looks a little bit better as well.
Sure does. Philadelphia 76ers are 9-point dogs in Phoenix, 222 total. 10% ownership to Maxey. Everybody else is basically unowned. It's all single-digit ownership to the rest of these guys on FanDuel. I'm 2xing the field on Maxey. I think he looks interesting. The piece of information that we need for today is whether or not Tobias Harris plays. He's missed the previous 2 games, and he is questionable for today. Seems likely that he's going to play. I've got Harris in, and I'm still getting to 20% Maxey. Probably get a little bit more if he's out.
No idea if Harris plays, but Maxey already looks good. So if Harris is out, he'll only look better. In some ways, and we talk about this, like Harris being in might make Philly more competitive. So Phoenix is good. Maxey looks great here. He's right in that Halliburton, Dame, Shea, Cade Cunningham, De'Aaron Fox grouping. I don't think you're making a mistake rostering any of those guys, and Maxey is right in that group. If Harris is out, he might bump to the top of that list.
Yeah. He would become, well, he's just going to get a bit of a rate bump across the board. At that point, you're probably looking a little bit at Batum, a little bit more at Kelly Oubre, but still, there's not going to be anything crazy here. It's sort of Maxey on his own with little bumps to the rest of these guys.
Yeah, Oubre price up. I don't think he's the worst tournament play, but he's probably too expensive he's definitely too expensive for his median outcome.
Yeah. Phoenix. The highest owned guy on Phoenix is 4% owned Bradley Beal. Highest owned guy on the FanDuel side is 7% owned Durant. They have 5% optimal rates. I have a couple shares of Beal, a couple shares of Booker, and a couple shares of Kevin Durant. Nobody more than 6%. If you're playing anybody from Phoenix, it's one of 4 guys: Durant, Nurkic, Beal, Booker. There are no other options.
There aren't, and those guys are really hard sells tonight. Nurkic, the center eligibility, we've talked about it a ton. The other guys are really expensive. Just never know who it's going to be on any given night. You know, usually it's going to be a combination of all of them, and none of them are great in tournaments. It's one of those situations only because of how expensive they are. Like, they're really good with those four guys, but it's usually just spread out too much. That said, on any given night, KD certainly has upside. Booker certainly has upside. We've seen it from them countless times, but not where I'm going to be prioritizing here. I like the narrative a little bit that Durant has been getting a little bit of heat recently for his recent play. And we've seen him bounce back in big ways before, but I'm not playing him because of that. Just something that I'll be maybe watching later if I'm watching NBA tonight.
He's my most exposed guy from the Suns at 6%.
Yeah, so.
And we close it out. The final 10 o'clock game. Clippers 12.5-point favorites in Portland. Tough one to talk about, but good for this slate. Questionable tag on Terrence Mann, questionable tag on Norman Powell. The Blazers have a doubtful tag on Jeremy Grant and a Q tag on Matisse Thybulle and Anthony Simons, and that tag got added later in the day. There's no ownership coming in on the Clippers, 6% to Kawhi. The Clippers are basically the Suns. It's Zubats, Harden, Kawhi, and Paul George, sort of like the other four dudes with center and three other guys for the Suns, and they look equally as unappealing.
Yeah, they're like the same exact thing. I don't even know who I like more between those two groupings. So I think that was a good call. I also think those questionable guys play because they went through shoot around today or whatever it was, the report I read. So yeah, Clippers are in a good spot. Again, I'm not going to be between one of Kawhi, Paul George, Harden, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal will probably be really, really good tonight. Yeah. But your guess is as good as mine as to who it is.
Yeah. One of those guys will smash at relatively low ownership. You just have to hope they're not a necessity smash, right? And they're just good enough.
It's not Booker dropping like 60 real points.
Yeah, then you're dead. You have to have them. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Or let's hope it's the one lineup that I have one of those guys in.
Right.
Now, Portland's tough to talk about, but 12% ownership to Scoot, 14 to Ayton, 13 to Simons. I have 20 of Scoot, 30 of Ayton, and 23 of Simons. I love having giant chunks of ownership for these guys because it'll allow me really clean swaps to other things in the 10 o'clock games. I'll find something, but I assume I'm staying with a large amount of Ayton, who's been amazing as of late from fantasy. And I am much higher on Scoot than I think the industry is, or at least based on my ownership, since I have 20%. Whether Simons plays or not, I don't care. Honestly, I hope he doesn't, because I'll get more value out of him not playing if I'm holding 23% when I get to lock.
Yeah, definitely an edge if he doesn't play. I mean, probably an edge either way, just because he's questionable and a lot of people won't play him because of that. I thought tonight was going to be the night I backed off Ayton just because there's a lot of good centers, but man, he might look the best out of all of them. I worry about Portland staying competitive here because the Clippers are a lot better than them, but Ayton's been so good. We've talked about it a bunch. I mean, he is just smashing at this price point, and like, I just think he's too cheap still. So yeah, firmly on my radar. Sounds like the centers you're getting to most are Ayton and Chet. That makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, I like Sabonis a ton. He's also a lot more expensive. So the rest of your lineup looks different. Yeah, Scoot already looked good to start the day for me. Now with Simons potentially out and these midday downgrades, like I'm always presuming on teams that have nothing to play for, the guy's not going to play. Now, again, we've seen time and time again, especially lately, teams just put anyone who's got a cough on the injury report. So I don't know for sure Simons is not going to play, but that would be my lean. And then Scoot would look even better. Yeah, I think Scoot looks really good here. The point guard eligibility, man, is the only reason why I wouldn't get there, but he looks like one of the upper tier guys you can get to at that position, even with a lot of good options. So yeah, Portland looks good and they could potentially look a lot better. I don't want too much Portland exposure, but I think certainly getting a little bit with the potential for that to look even better with guys being out makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I only want the Portland real dudes. That's it. I'll skip the rest of them. But if we get Simons out, like we're probably having a bit of a Delano Banton discussion. Who knows? If Thibel's out, we're definitely having that discussion. Kamara could become a little bit better of a value if his minutes can firm up, especially, Jabari Walker ended up playing massive minutes last time out, got to 33.5. If you got something like that out of Jabari Walker, you're going to wish you had him. This is going to be a fun one for late swaps because it's really the only spot that's pulling any sort of sizable ownership in the 10 o'clock games. So make sure you're ready for swaps tonight, guys.
Yep.
8 games up, 8 games down. It was looking bleak early, but I knew how little we were going to say for some of these teams from breaking it down earlier. So here we are at the end, live before lock coming up next. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
No, I'm just giggling to myself that Stanley Amudier rhymes with Emmanuel Mudiay.
I loved Emmanuel Mudiay coming out. I hate that he busted. All right, guys, live before lock coming up next. Shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring. Good luck, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
And we are back for another edition of the Stochastic Hall of Fame, and we've got a ton of them today, so buckle up, fellas, we're moving fast. And if you ever want to get involved, get a free month of any Stochastic subscription that you want up to $200 and get the shout out, inducted into the Stochastic Hall of Fame. All you got to do is download the Stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar and tweet your wins at Stochastic HOF when you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Does not matter what the entry size is. Let's get it started. Hip Hop Lyrics, found you guys during the Madam Sims, been hanging out ever since, turned 5 cents into $2.50, but more importantly, became a Hall of Famer. Shout out to the lineup generator. Yes, sir, shout out indeed. Namdi back at it again, took down the 5K Minimax, getting back on the heater. Thanks Eric and Greg for the Houston Green call to put me over the edge. Best tools in the business. Dave Oliver, thank you guys for your great NBA breakdown and Sims. Elway's Army, we removed 2 of them because there were too many. That guy's just on an absolute tear. And John, yesterday's night slate was a good one. Keep up the great work. Followed by Breland, Worthy, solo first in the Minimax last night for 1K. All thanks to the Stochastic Sims and insights on Live Before Lock. Keep up the good work, fellas. Fully loaded, awful run out for me on Underdog, dropping from 2nd to 10th place on the final Fox basket. On the bright side, my process is improving on DraftKings, and it's all thanks to the Stochastic Sims. A free month of Stochastic makes tonight suck a little less. Thanks, Stochastic. And our own Nolan Kelly Spud Kelly, started playing NBA DFS a week ago, finished first in the Minimax tonight. Thanks to the Sims. If I can do it, anyone can with this tool. Justin, the Stochastic Sims tool, theme here, does amazing work. Almost 18,000 entries. Stochastic takes the top 6 and 8 of the top 10, all myself and Ugly Lovely. I wish I would have signed up sooner. Brandon Weber wasn't top spot, but good enough for the Hall of Fame. Yes, sir, it is. And a random human. Hey, guys, thanks to your Sims, I was able to make some last-minute changes after waiting for that lineup to come out. Wasn't looking too good early, but gotta trust the Sims. Chopping first place for a random human. And the champ 0824. Normally, I'm single entry 20 max guy. First time 150 maxing and shared third. Tools are the truth, but honestly, the content second to none. Shout out to all the boys at Stochastic. Cheers, fellas. Anthony, thanks to Stochastic, absolutely crushed it last night. Took 4 of the top 5 spots. Bam, great start to building my bankroll. PG18, Sims Tool, keep crushing the showdowns. I love it. Nice way to start St. Patrick's Day. Cheers. And then Trill Russell finished in 2nd place in the NHL Quarter Jukebox for a free month of the Sims package. And our own Tom Kennedy, when you enter last minute and forgot to diversify, well, it worked out. 1st and 2nd place for Tom in the NBA shots. 6th and 7th, as a matter of fact, too. Avatar in there with Stochastic in 5th place on top of that. Wayne, 2nd, 1st in 3 weeks on the Minimax. Thank you, Sims and the hosts. Thank you. Time for the 100K. Jay, hey guys, 3rd first place win since the All-Star break resumed. Lineup generator does it again. And Shoon Times, huge takedown on my 2nd day at Stochastic, off $60. Best ever. Thank you. Yeah, monster wins for Shoon Time on only $60. And Andre Harrison, night slate wins. Sims came through in a big way. Hauser raining those threes. Almost 3K for Andre on that one. Whiteout 83, $10,000 win using the Stochastic NHL Top Stacks tool. Thanks. Built the lineups. Well, not going to read that, but congratulations to Wideout 83 and Endless How. Endless. Fun sweat tonight on the late slate. Thank you, Stochastic Tools and crew, as always. Another $3,000 win in the Micro Max. Gotta love it. Sean, shout out to the Stochastic crew for a nice bankroll boost. Took first in the quarter, third in the nickel with the help of the Sims tool and live before lock. Ugly 8 game, another great week of PGA. Wow, all across the top of the leaderboard for Ugly 8 game. Congrats to you, sir. And Michael Diaz took down the mini max. Don't know how I should feel. Max out the mini max and the $4 with 300 uniques. This lineup could have ended up getting 100K. Good win anyway, and thanks again for the content. And Eric Mack, well, boys, here's another one for the Sims. Literally just signed up using the secret code that can only be heard during the YouTube shows. Thought I was in the top 3, but looks like I ended up in 4th by 0.3 after a stat correction. I hope that's good enough. Clintwood 83. Yo, Laffy finally made it in the Stochastic Hall of Fame, baby. Sims for the win. Crash Money. Another successful night with Stochastic Sims. Was sitting on 100K until Boucher's putback, but still brought in great profit and a few qualifiers. Avi, second place out of 27,800 entries. $4 entry. Let's go. Thanks for the help tonight. $5,000 on $4 entry. And remember, finish top 3 in any contest in a field of 5,000 or more and get your free month of any Stochastic subscription up to $200. Just tweet those wins to us at Stochastic HOF while rocking the Stochastic avatar.
Four months and it would have been a baby.
Congratulations, Jordan.
What is happening, everyone? Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock, where I really thought we were going to have all the news well in advance of the show, and we weren't going to have anything that broke right before the show started because we got the Miami Heat. They told us that Bam Adebayo wasn't going to be playing 30 minutes ago. I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. I'm going to be able to build my lineups. Everything's going to be set and ready to go. What happens? Everything is done. I've got Sims run. I'm all set up for FanDuel and DraftKings. And then just before the show starts, Jrue Holiday gets rolled out. So in true fashion, we never could get all the information in a timely fashion before the show. But it's all right because we're going to be covering everything about the slate here. We're sponsored by Sleeper. And even more important than any of that, tomorrow is the final day for the OS sign-up deal. So if you guys haven't checked out OddsShopper, if you sign up using the link below in the promo code MADNESS, MADNESS, all capital letters, you're going to get OddsShopper for $1 for a week. So that's going to cover the next week of basketball games. That's also going to lead right up to the start of baseball season. It's going to have you covered for the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament. So sign up, use that promo code MADNESS in the link below if you guys want access to OddsShopper for $1. Eric, what's happening, man?
Pretty good. Yeah, I put a CSV in right ahead of time because I was like, I'm not going to run into this situation yesterday where my browser wasn't working, didn't have anything working on my end, had to panic, almost didn't get my lineups in, which would have been a disaster, but alas, got them in, was able to just break even on the day, so was pretty happy with that. From a DFS perspective, had a really nice day over on pick 6, and then we get to run it back with some massive news implications across the board today. I just updated everything for Boston. I think we're just about to get it done here on our end as well. I mean, this is a really fun slate. Like, I think this is one of the more enjoyable slates that we've had in a long time. We get the late swap evening window. There's not a ton of news there that we're really worried about, but like, I think figuring out where to get some low-owned pieces from a couple of these teams early on is going to be very, very pivotal.
Yeah, and as far as injury news goes, we do have a good amount of it already, but most pressing is that we did get that Celtics news a little bit before the show started, like I had said. So let's go over some of the implications of that before we get to everybody's super chats and questions and whatnot. But we did just find out Jrue Holiday, he's out today. Sam Hauser is also going to be out, which not massive news that Hauser's out, but it also has some implications. So we do have a projections update. Ownership will be coming pretty shortly. But Eric, what is it that you like getting to from the Celtics, if anything, in the absence of Jrue Holiday?
I like getting to some things. I mean, it's not just the absence of Jrue Holiday is the deal, is that you also have Sam Hauser out, and that just opens up, I think, Peyton Pritchard at 5K. I'm going to have a lot of interest against Milwaukee. This is a game that still has a double-digit spread. You definitely can get after that backcourt of Beasley and Lillard. There should be opportunities. Jordan?
Yes.
Jordan Klein, really? This
What?
early in the show? We're doing the flash to exotics at freaking
You're talking
3:10
about Peyton
p.m.
Pritchard. He's the original exotic, the OG. How could you be upset that we're bringing him up now? Is there a better exotic you like on the slate? There's some to choose from.
Boston. What do you like from Boston, Greg?
We got Sabonis on the slate. You had, how good was your Jock Landale call yesterday? Career high in blocks. 7 blocks for Jock Landale. Tell you guys how sharp Eric is yesterday.
I hate you.
Jock Landale's career high in blocks was like 3 going into yesterday. More than double his career high in blocks.
I hate you. I don't like you.
You've been nailing these all year.
Gee, thank you.
Him having just an absolute ceiling game is maybe the funniest thing that could have possibly happened yesterday.
I don't know. You texted me an abnormal amount. Normally that means that something funny in your mind happened. So there you go. Thank you.
Anybody who took your advice and played Jock Landale was pretty happy with the results yesterday.
Yes, they were. Congratulations. Way to go, me. Pat on the back.
There we go.
Awesome job. I am just
Slayer OKZ saying block Landale. He should rechange.
Block Landale. Now I like
entire
that.
Deal.
Block Landale.
7 blocks yesterday. Only played a few minutes. Still was able to manage 7 blocks in that time. By the way, projections update, because we have that now that the Boston Celtics have everything settled on the injury report. Jason Tatum projected for 46.6 fantasy points. Jaylen Brown at 39.28. We did get word that Porzingis isn't going to have a minutes restriction. Do you buy that? Like, what does a non-minutes restriction look like for playing time for Porzingis?
That's always the thing that I say whenever it's like, oh, Victor Wembanyama not going to be on an arranged minutes limit. It's like, well, they're still going to limit his minutes because he's not playing 38 anytime soon, 40 anytime soon. My guess, if I had to, because I kind of do, we're on the show, 30.
That's what we have him in for. We have him in for 30, and I think it's reasonable. Like, I would be very surprised, even though they said he's not going to have a minutes restriction. I would be really surprised if he goes out and plays like 36. The other day, we didn't hear anything about a minutes restriction, and we were going back and forth about it. I landed on, I felt like 25 was probably the most realistic minutes for Kristaps Porzingis, and even that, he came in fairly under to that number. I think if I remember, he ended at like 20 minutes. So it is a game against the Milwaukee Bucks, which, while is a marquee matchup to some extent, Giannis is also out. So we do have the Celtics favored by 10.5 points now. By the way, so many double-digit spreads today. We've got all but 2 games have spreads of 10 or more points. And of those games, one of them is Phoenix-Philly, which has a 9-point spread. So blowouts are going to be happening tonight. But that's another reason why also I'm pretty skeptical of the upper limit of Porzingis' playing time.
I am pretty, I'm pretty positive we're not going to see him play 33, 34 minutes in any way, shape, or form, barring OT. Like, there's just no way. So while that would be his normal minutes allotment, I don't think we get to a normal minutes allotment for him.
As far as points per dollar plays, it's pretty clear in our data. The number one guy to get to from the Celtics, Peyton Pritchard projected for 27.5 fantasy points at 5K on DraftKings. He's definitely somebody that stands out. If we go and look at the FanDuel side of things, we've got Peyton Pritchard also looking actually even stronger on FanDuel than DraftKings. He's only $4,800 on FanDuel. So Peyton Pritchard, overall, the guy that makes the most sense to get to from the Celtics. If you got, Tatum, Brown, Derek White, no issues with those guys. They're just not priorities on the slate.
Nope, not priorities whatsoever. I do think the Milwaukee side still has like those mid-range, the one expensive piece we want to get to. It's definitely going to be a Boston team that's upgraded in some spots. I mean, are you going to have some Porzingis in your life? I mean, obviously, it's kind of a ridiculous thing to say right now when you haven't reran everything yet. It's 7,900. I doubt that I get to any kind of massive quantity, but no, Giannis is obviously a big deal.
As far as our ownership, because that has also just gotten updated, Peyton Pritchard is 15% owned on DraftKings. It's the only player on the Celtics picking up more than 5% ownership. Over on FanDuel, I assume he's very popular on FanDuel. Yeah, 32% ownership going to Peyton Pritchard now on FanDuel. As far as the rest of the players on the team, Tatum is the next most popular at 8% ownership. So Pritchard, field is getting there, at least on FanDuel, a pretty heavyweight, not as much on DraftKings, though he's in lineups, but nothing else really popping up as being any kind of real popularity. Is that surprising to you?
No, not surprising at all. It's a situation where this game has an 11-point spread, where there are lots of ways that it gets wonky and you walk into a closing rotation that doesn't have Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, White, and Horford a part of it. I think that the prices are just up across the board because we've had so many situations where Boston's rested one or two guys. They've been out with injuries for one or two guys on that road trip that they were on, come back. Like they're now pretty efficiently priced. And yeah, you get one of them out, but it's the lowest usage guy at 16.2% amongst that starting five that typically is out there. So Drew Holiday being out is the least impactful of any starter you could have for Boston sitting.
And as far as other players we're still waiting for on the injury report, there's a handful of them. And a lot of them, unfortunately, in the later games today, where it's not going to be news that I think we're going to be getting for a lot of these prior to lock. But Draymond Green is questionable. John Collins is questionable. Anthony Simons is questionable. Tobias Harris is questionable. Santi Aldama is questionable. Norman Powell is questionable. Terrence Mann is questionable. And then there's a little bit of a drop off. Then you got guys like Matisse Thybulle who are questionable. Are there any particular injuries for tonight that are making you really try to backload your lineups?
Yeah, the John Collins one is pretty interesting. Obviously, he got his face dunked on by God, Man, and Edwards. It was beautiful stuff. But Walker Kessler's 5,200 and would have to be playing quite a few minutes. We have Yurt 7, which is never a fun thing. We've had this Yurt 7 experiment a couple of slates where it's like, well, yeah, he's a great fantasy producer, but then he plays 0 minutes. I think he gets enacted into some action here. He played 18 against Minnesota on the 16th. I mean, he's been a DMP in some of these spots, but like the Kessler 5,200, Yurt 7, 3,400 would be such an interesting thing to be walking into. I think you'd have to consider it to some extent. Obviously, they've played Micah Potter in some of these spots too. 13, 14, 13 minutes in recent games as well. Didn't play last one, but I think that that's one that's at least interesting because of the price points for them at center. And I think center, we've got decent chalk here now. We got Bam Adebayo out. That's going to make a number of different things look interesting, specifically Thomas Bryant, who I kind of was expecting to see higher ownership on. We have Orlando Robinson, who at 3K, I think is pretty interesting to be clicking on in some lineups as well. Just seeing Jonte Porter start to come down now. He's at 4K, 30% ownership now. I'm thinking I might get to, around the field there in that capacity, but that game gives you an extra half hour. If potentially John Collins sits, I think that one is kind of one to star and highlight because of what Walker Kessler, if he walks into 26, 28 minutes, can really do.
Yeah, and I pretty much agree with everything you said. That there's one player that I would be most apt to make reservations in my lineup for. It would be for Walker Kessler with the potential absence of John Collins, who's dealing with a tremendously bruised ego as well as a potential concussion. So John Collins, after getting just his absolute face kicked in, like you said, by that great Anthony Edwards dunk, we'll see. We'll see how long it's going to take for his ego to recover and allow him to be back out on the court for Utah. And also, just based on what you had said there, kind of curious, like, let's say that we do just have to allocate 48 center minutes of John Collins. Some of it's going to go to Walker Kessler. Some of it also potentially to Yurt 7. Not a guaranteed, but he is the player who'd be most likely to play the backup center minutes. You had said something like 28 minutes for Walker Kessler, which would then leave something like 20 minutes for Yurt 7. How many minutes would you have to be expecting from Yurt 7 for you want to play him tonight?
16.
Okay. Yeah, Yurt 7 this year. Let's see, what has he done for a points per minute fantasy rate?
Just saying, he could go, he's a fantasy point per minute guy. If he spikes 1.2, 1.3 in a rotation of like 16, 18 minutes, I'm saying like, if you told me I got 16 minutes out of Yurt 7 at 3,400, I would at least think about it. I would want 22, 24, and then there's hook slam kind of potential there. But you want me to set the bar low? The bar's pretty low. It's just such an uncomfortable thing knowing that it's like DNPCD is like on the table as opposed to like guaranteed to be out there running, because there is no guarantees with this front court if Collins is out.
All right, let's start getting to your guys' questions. I see we have some super chats sitting here, and I'm sure there are questions for us in the Discord channel as well. First out, oh, look at this. We're starting to get other people are beating Ace of Spade to the punch to ask DK Tiers questions. Look at that. First question here is from Rez the Goat. Rez the Goat wants to know who our favorite options are for DK Tiers, Eric. And also, for you guys, I don't want to tell you to not give us the money or donations or whatever, but if you have other tiers questions, because we've been seeing this on shows where people will ask us the same tiers question like 2 or 3 times. I don't have any problems answering it multiple times, but if you guys want like more detailed answers about specific tiers, if you're asking a follow-up question about tiers later, I'm more than happy to do that. You don't have to just leave the same question, ask us for our favorite options in each tier. But that aside, let's start with tier 1, Eric, where my answer is going to be Domantas Sabonis. Sabonis in tier 1. Tier 2, this would have been really interesting if Giannis didn't get ruled out, but Giannis got ruled out. So Damian Lillard in tier 2.
Dame.
Tier 3, we've got Fox, Halliburton, Maxey, Curry would have been a potential nice option. Bam, but he's out for tonight. I'm going to go with Halliburton. Fox is the player that projects the best overall, but I'm a little bit hesitant to make too many lineups that have both Sabonis and Fox in them. De'Aaron Fox from me in tier 3. I mean, sorry, Halliburton for me in tier 3 over De'Aaron Fox, I meant to say.
Correct. Same here.
Tier 4, that is going to be Kawhi. Tier 5, DeAndre Ayton.
Ayton by a lot. This is the most pronounced tier.
Boy, Ayton has just been killing it as of late.
Why is he playing 38 minutes a night?
He's playing well, and he's. Did you see the dumb story about why he claims he struggled early in the year?
No, but I have a feeling that it's him making excuses, which is kind of his MO.
It's the worst excuse you've ever heard. He claims that for the first half of the season, he slept on a very uncomfortable mattress that gave him poor sleep and was impacting his like back flexibility or something.
DeAndre Ayton contract.
100% serious. This is like not bullshit, not me making something up.
4 years, $132 million. Get a better mattress. Get a different mattress, you idiot. Line up 48,000 mattresses in your household and lay on all of them until you're comfortable.
And he was sleeping, according to him, on an air mattress as well. It's
what?
I'm telling you, look it up.
Out of his driveway because of ice that one game. I mean, this guy has John Collins available to play. So scratch everything we talked about with Kessler and Yurt 7, and thank God we don't have to deal with Yurt 7.
Yeah. So is this going to change how you approach building your lineups now that we have that news?
A little bit. I mean, I was building out some extra Walker Kessler. He was the ROI boost that I was the most interested in whenever we get that question. I mean, he was just somebody that I wanted to get to a little bit. I was going to go in and change his projection and do a couple of the things to try to just have him built into some lineups. You know, he would have been under-owned relative to his chances of success, assuming he got the start there. But now I'm kind of interested in John Collins to some extent. I mean, there's no Lauri Markkanen out there again today. This is a small ball type team. I mean, you get Chet Holmgren on the other side. This is probably good for Chet Holmgren. We're going to be honest too. Yeah, it's just going to make pretty much everything on the Utah Jazz side unappealing.
If you dig into the advanced stats of John Collins, he's been terrible this year on both offense and defense. If memory serves correct, he's been better on the offensive side and the defensive side. He's like 12th percentile on defense or something like that, according to Dunks and Threes. Just trying to add some more context to you saying it's good for Chet Holmgren.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, well, that's what I'm getting at is that John Collins is one of the worst defenders in the NBA. And so with John Collins in, as opposed to Walker Kessler, who is only out there for defense, we're talking the difference between a 6th percentile defender, which is what John Collins is over on Dunks and Threes, plus minus -0.2. And then Walker Kessler is a plus 1.1, 83rd percentile defender. So, yeah, I like Chet Holmgren a little bit more. That's one thing that we don't do a ton of is talk about like the implications of one guy being in as opposed to another. It affects a center more than it does pretty much any other position on the floor because they're the ones who match up together a little bit more than anybody else. You're going to get pick and rolls. You're going to get the same stuff that the modern NBA does, but there is no doubt that Utah's defense drops with John Collins on the floor as opposed to Walker Kessler.
All right, let's go ahead and see what the next question we have here. It is from T. Willis. T. Willis wants to know for a FanDuel GPP, it's a 2v2, Damian Lillard and Tyrese Halliburton or De'Aaron Fox and Cade Cunningham. The Dame side, it's such a big boost for Dame being able to play without Giannis. And I understand there's blowout risk. That's probably the number one thing people are going to say is, oh my God, aren't the Bucks going to get blown out with Giannis being out? Very potentially. But like we mentioned at the top of the show, there's no way to avoid that today. Pacers, double-digit favorites over the Pistons. Kings, double-digit favorites over the Raptors. And then we've also got the Celtics, double-digit favorites over the Bucks. Thunder, double-digit favorites over the Jazz. Warriors, double-digit favorites over Memphis. That carries 6 of the 8 games we have on the slate, double-digit favorites. Then also, like we said at the top, Suns are 9-point favorites over the 76ers. It's just something you can't really avoid. But asking you, Eric, 2v2, Dame and Halliburton or Fox and Cunningham, which side do you prefer?
The Dame side.
Deuce Trey, FanDuel cash game, locks at each position. Let's see. Who are the guys that we would recommend for a cash game on FanDuel at each position? So point guard, pretty easily Damian Lillard for me. Do you have FanDuel line pulled up in front of you, by the way?
Yeah, I'm playing FanDuel today as well. Yep.
So FanDuel cash game, I'm going to say Dame at point guard. Fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Shooting guard. That's going to be Agbaji.
Oh, Amude for me.
I'm going to say Agbaji at shooting guard. Both of them, by the way, those probably should be your 2 shooting guard guys for cash. I know it's on the cheaper end, but still.
Yeah, I have tons of Stanley Amude over on FanDuel. So yeah, you can ask me all the FanDuel questions in the world because I kind of feel bad because I used to be the guy who played both sites every freaking day. And lately I've just been like DraftKings only, and then I have enough money, prop exposure and everything else where it's like at a certain point I couldn't really handle playing both, but like these are fun days. It's fun to play both sites and be able to give you guys all the information because I know there's a lot of you out there playing FanDuel. But yeah, there's no doubt if you're playing cash, you're playing Agbaji and Amude at shooting guard positions.
And then if we go to small forward, that is going to be Bruce Brown.
Definitely Bruce Brown. Best play on the slate on FanDuel right now.
There's a lot of Raptors that you guys should be looking at in cash games. So now FanDuel, obviously the most you could play is 4, but it's a team you really want to be loading up on for cash game purposes. Power forward, that is going to be Jimmy Butler for me.
Jimmy Butler for sure.
And then center, DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, it's so weird. Ayton's my highest owned center on FanDuel right now. I hate it.
I mean, it's kind of hard to avoid, especially for cash games.
I mean, his PRA opened at 36.5. I bet it down. I didn't personally bet it down, but I definitely should have gotten even more on it than I did. I put, it's like 36.5 and I was running it and I'm like, oh, this is a really good under. I wish I had jammed it. It's down to 33.5 pretty much everywhere now, but that's still a pretty hefty number. 33.5 for a guy who's going to play 38, 40 minutes barring blowout. DeAndre Ayton playing, weird to say, well. He's playing well.
He is. He's playing well. And even to the point where, listen to this, I put out my just like kind of gut feel thoughts. And like, here's what I think each all NBA team should be. It got a lot more engagements than I thought it was. People were very upset about some of it. But most of the stuff people were upset about for mostly dumb reasons. Though people be like, hey, how could AD be on an all NBA team above Sabonis when Sabonis has these numbers against AD for his career? It's like, all right, that's not really what all NBA is. But there was multiple people who were like, how can DeAndre Ayton not be on an all NBA team? I was like, what planet are we living on? Where people think DeAndre Ayton is one of the top 15 players in the NBA, but that's how good he's been as of late, where people are actually viewing him that way. It's crazy, but that's what people are saying about DeAndre Ayton. Kevin left us a super chat. First super chat ever. Well, thanks, Kevin. We appreciate it. He says, best 3 forwards on DK for 5K or under.
All right. Well, you look at that. I'm going to pull back up tiers lineups because we didn't do tier 6 apparently, and there are multiple people clamoring for it. So I'm going to pull that up. Tier 6.
Bad.
I've got Pascal Siakam and Chet Holmgren tied. I'm going to go Chet Holmgren now.
6 is very tight. I'm going to go with Simons here, but yeah, Simons, Siakam, Chet Holmgren. These are all players that are projecting very close to each other.
Yep. Wanted to get that in for the people so that they didn't feel left out.
Good call. Good call. My bad.
You're good.
So Kevin wanted to know 3 best forwards to roster on DraftKings for 5K or less. Let's see. 5K or less.
First guy's Jordan Nwora, 3,800. Just going through my lineups here, seeing the guys I'm getting the most of. Yeah, I first guy for me is just Jordan Nwora.
Yeah,
Umude
checking
has
right now.
small forward positionality, I suppose, but he's a little bit overowned.
Okay, so 5K or less and forward. So it can be small forward or power forward eligible guys.
Yeah, I'm playing a ton of Umude over on FanDuel. I'm playing a little bit less over on DK. Only 8 players on DK, lots of multi-positionality, moving around. We're on FanDuel, having him be strict shooting guard only. I'm like, yeah, I'll jam there. We got Patty Mills starting. What in the fuck?
Really? I'm gonna have to update.
Yeah,
stupid
no,
shit
we're
for this again?
we're really getting Patty Mills starting. Australian legend Patty Mills is starting for the Miami Heat tonight because why wouldn't he be at 3,100? Come on.
Rozier, Mills, Butler, Jovic, Thomas Bryant. This helps Jimmy Butler out a little bit.
Oh yeah, it
I mean,
definitely
look
does.
at this, because once again, this lineup, Rozier and Butler are both going to be guys who could take up usage. Nobody else in this lineup, Jovic, Bryant, Mills, these are low usage guys. We could be looking at 30+% usage for both Terry Rozier and Jimmy Butler tonight.
This is just like, I hate the fact that like Patty Mills, I don't know who I thought was going to start over. I mean, I can't believe they're not starting Hawkes. That's the weird one to me, is like they're still bringing Hawkes off the bench. Like, don't you? He just started the last 2 games. He's played 35 minutes in back-to-back games, and now we're going to just throw Patty Mills at 3,100 out there. I mean, this game environment sucks. It is terrible. It is horrible. It is no good. It is very bad. It's a 206.5 total. And now we're getting a $3,100 guy that you have to at least entertain in some lineups, who's been a 0.62 fantasy point per minute guy this season, who's only averaged 11.7 minutes per game. But like, we're going to take him from 16, and that there's no way you don't move him north of 20 minutes here in any circumstance. I mean, why would they do this to us?
There's so many other options they could have gone with. Hawkes would have been a very reasonable one. They could have gone back to DeLon Wright. I think Wright is better than Patty Mills at this point in his career. They could have gone Caleb Martin. There's a lot of options they could have gone with, and they went with maybe the worst one possible.
The worst one with the worst with the worst fantasy point per minute rate in the worst matchup, but he's fucking 3,100 with shooting guard, a point guard eligibility. I hate it so much. I hate it. I hope, if you're listening, please put him in a place where he doesn't show up in lineup so I can at least just be mad at you, because I don't want to do this, but I have a feeling I'm going to put him in for like 24.5 minutes or 25 minutes. I'm going to get to him and I'm not happy.
We have to finish answering the super chat from before.
Okay,
Don't want it to be like something that happened before where we get derailed and then forget the final part of the question. So Kevin wants to know our 3 favorite forwards for 5K or under. So Umude is one. And another one, because we already went over now.
Another one.
So Umude and Nwora, these are the easy ones, right? These are the easy guys to say sub 5K at forward. Who else do we want to add to the mix, though?
Agbaji. Fournier, potentially. We don't know that starting lineup, but there's a chance it's him.
How about Jovic as a contrarian one now?
Love it.
Because same point I made before. If you look at the starting lineup for the Heat, there's so much usage available. Jovic locked into a starting lineup spot. He's going to be playing alongside Thomas Bryant in the front court as well. I assume Jovic is not going to pick up very much ownership. I like him for tournaments. And I'm not saying that he's on the same level as like Umude or Nwora or anything like that, but I just want to add somebody in that price range for you who isn't projected for like 40% ownership.
Yeah, it completely comes down to how he's playing early, because they've shortened the leash 16, 15 minutes the last 2 starts. He had gotten up to 23 and 30. Obviously, this is a little bit different where we are missing a big piece in Bam Adebayo. So that at least kind of makes it, there's the potential where they just go hot hand. They don't need to have Thomas Bryant out there for any kind of like extended period of time. There's only one big on the other side, being Jared Allen. We don't have the typical Mobley Allen center situation, but I will say that there's a massive minutes downside. I'm not going to go crazy with it, but at 4,400, I definitely see a way that he plays himself into 28 minutes.
All right, so we got a couple more super chats here. We've also got questions piling up for us in the Discord channel, but let's wait for the projections to update, Eric. Yep. I think this is a good time for us to do the nuke of the night.
Okay.
And then we could rehash on the Miami Heat and everything once the projections update, and we'll see what this goofball Patty Mills has in store for us today. So Jordan, play the animation. Time for nuke of the night. This is what's going to happen. Everybody plays Patty Mills today. Just explode. All right, Eric, hit us with it. Yesterday, you hit a home run with Jock Landau as your nuke of the night. What are you going to follow it up with tonight?
All right. This is probably the most uncomfortable nuke of the night that I've had in quite some time, but I'm just going to give him a shout out because he's back. He's back in the saddle again. And the assist rate is there in a way that I hadn't really projected out, but it makes sense because John Morant hasn't been there a lot. But I keep looking at the board today, and we have cheap shooting guard, small forward, playing a lot of those guys at small forward, typically getting to the Nwora at power forward, getting to some like chalky 3K, 4K pieces. And then you're getting up to the top of like a Sabonis or an SGA, and that kind of seems where everybody's going. But I got to at least throw this out there because I think there's a legitimate chance that Desmond Bane goes out and just sets the world on fire from the get-go. First off, they're 11-point dogs here. They're a terrible basketball team. They do have G.G. Jackson, who's somebody who has a 25% usage, who is now starting playing more minutes, which has me a little bit uncomfortable. But there is no doubt that Desmond Bane playing as many minutes as what he has his first two games back, 32 and 37. This guy was routinely playing 40 a night back in the middle of, whatever. And do you know what his price tag was, Greg? It was sitting right routinely around 9K. You're getting Desmond Bane against a Golden State front court of the corpse of Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Brandon Pajemski, trying to guard Desmond Bane tonight. 8,100 at 5% ownership tonight. The usage I'm projecting him for right around 30%. I'm putting him at north of a 1.25 fantasy point per minute scorer. I am getting just an eternal amount of him. I also just like backloading a couple of lineups with some more expensive pieces, moving them around. Like, I don't think there's going to be anything crazy that breaks, but we do have Tobias Harris sitting there questionable. We do have some other things that we're going to be waiting on. And I just want to get to some Desmond Bane no matter what, because again, he was the leader of this basketball team without John Morant out there. There are still so many pieces that are missing. Yes, you do have the main one, Jaren Jackson Jr., being there as a complimentary piece, like getting to him in tournaments as well. But specific shout out for Desmond Bane, who got up to 37 minutes in an overtime game last time. I have him in for 34 here. I see a minutes upside for it. Desmond Bane, your nuke of the night. Gotham's Reckoning.
By the way, we got another stupid starting lineup. The Detroit Pistons are starting Tosan EV Boyman tonight. So projection just they updated for the Miami Heat, but now we're going to have to get a Pistons update in here for if Boyman starting for the Pistons. But yeah, they're going with
why
Tosan
are Patty Mills?
They've got Mude back in the starting lineup, the backcourt, Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. Let's see, what is the price point on him?
I'm guessing 3K. Who is this goober? What are we doing? What are these starting lineups in the first games of the night?
3,400. It's hard, and it's going to be hard to ignore. 3,400 and an up-pace matchup against the Indiana Pacers. Tosan Boyman. That's why I just call me EV Boyman. It's much easier.
This is the same guy that was didn't he play for Memphis earlier this season?
Yeah. He was the really good pivot play off of Jemison the first time he was chalk.
Okay. Why is he back? What are we doing? Thanks, Detroit. Thanks, guys.
Here's what I'm interested. Which team is he going to play on next on the 10-day contract?
Yeah, I can't wait. Oh, April. We got a lot coming in April. Can't wait to roster him on the Portland Trailblazers next to Matisse Thybulle and Tamani Kamara. It's just all these
not a bad guess. It's not idiots. A bad guess of a team that he's going to play for, but
that's pretty
he's another value option for us to consider on the slate now. As far as the next super chat we have here, Thomas Ryan wants to know, Who are our favorite plays at each position on DraftKings, Eric?
I don't know.
That
I have no clue. I'm playing
is,
100 lineups.
that's a
I have
relatable
no
answer.
idea who I'm going to roster yet.
It is relatable.
No clue. It all comes down to
some of my exposures for players are going to change based on the most recent news, but I don't think my favorite players are.
Yeah, that's probably a good way of putting it. I just have to decide if I'm actually going to click on Patty Mills' name one time, because that might be too many. Like,
we have, by the way,
I don't
my
know.
side of the nuke of the night, I'm going with Jimmy Butler. He's only projected for 12% ownership.
Love.
Talked about all the usage available for the Miami Heat. I think that's a very reasonable upper mid-range play that the field doesn't seem to be getting to.
Your nemesis, man.
Yeah.
Mending fences. Look at you.
No, not at all. And trust me,
okay.
will feel my wrath if he does not come through with at least 60 fantasy points tonight. Mind your P's and Q's tonight, Jimmy. But as far as my actual favorite players at each position here, so not just like tournament plays, but the players that we overall have the most exposure to, for Thomas's question, for me at point guard, Damian Lillard. Shooting guard, Stanley Amude.
No, Malik Monk. I'm a liar.
For me at small forward, Bruce Brown Jr.
Malik Monk / Bruce Brown Jr., same ownership.
Power forward, Jordan Nwora. And then at center, Jante Porter.
Thomas Bryant.
All right. So there we have our most rostered players at each position. And then, going to have to rerun some lineups for this Pistons news and see what else that gets me to. I still think my favorite guys at each position should remain unchanged, but there will be other exposures.
All
and
right.
like Patty Mills wasn't in any lineups where I might have Patty Mills in like 2 or 3% of lineups or something.
So I've never done this before. This is going to be a first, but in honor of the great Block Landale, if you will, I'm going to give you, by my own omission, my exotic play of the night, who is now Chet Holmgren. Chet Holmgren has to be up your board with John Collins now playing basketball today. He's now the 6th highest on center. I'm going to get to more of him at 7,200. We're getting a price decrease because the usage hasn't been there constantly for him in all of these games. 9%, 18% in 2 of the last 4. In the middle of that, though, 28.2% usage. I mean, the guy is just set up to smash tonight. And if everybody's going to roster all the 4K guys, like, I do think in cash, you're probably going to like Jante Porter plus another center, and I wouldn't mind if that ended up being Thomas Bryant, although, again, probably going to be that, but I just think Chet is such an amazing tournament play, so for the first ever time, me giving you the exotic play of the night, akin to the nuke of the night, Chet Holmgren.
There we go. I love it. And when the projection, I feel terrible for Rich for having to do projections for these goofballs
this is the worst.
Tonight, but by the way, I was going to say, as soon as it's updated, I'll let you guys know. We just got an update. So let's see
amazing
if that is taking.
Let this if Bowie guy not be in lineups, please. Please don't have the Princeton dude be in lineups. I would not like that at all.
So our friend Tosan EV Boyman is projected for 27 minutes, which has him at just below 18 fantasy points.
Okay. Well, he's going to show up in lineups then, so that sucks.
Not like a crazy amount of lineups.
Good.
He'll show up in some, though. I mean, these project for 18 fantasy points at 34.
This Patty Mills thing is so tilting because they could have gone to somebody else. I would have liked to play a starting Hawkes or Caleb Martin. You can't play either of them now. I've got them for like 30 minutes each, and it's basically Jimmy Butler, Thomas Bryant, or bust on that basketball team. Actually, I will say Orlando Robinson at a flat 3K, I don't completely hate either. He's going to show up in lineups for me.
I mean, there's a lot of guys that are just playable cheap options, like Orlando Robinson. Like Orlando Robinson's kind of in the same boat as like EV Boyman.
Yeah, but you have to use a center spot, and there are some centers that are going to play 28, 30 minutes and smash tonight.
Let's see what our next question is here. We've got a super chat from Devin Neiman. Devin wants to know, Jimmy Butler and Trace Jackson Davis or G.G. Jackson and Jalen Williams? I'm going to say Butler and Trace Jackson Davis.
Yep, first one.
Cheers Brew wants to know DK cash game locks. All right, so here are the players you absolutely have to be playing in cash games, in my opinion. Jordan Nwora, Stanley Amude,
Mm-hmm.
Jonte Porter,
Mm-hmm.
Damian Lillard, Domantas Sabonis.
Mm-hmm. I will say Trace Jackson Davis, I didn't realize that I had 15% of him till just now. Obviously, if you get Draymond Green out, yay, life is great. But, you know, I mean, 4,900, he would, I'd love to see him start. That'd be very nice. DK Cash, like you gave him the plays already. Yes. Cool.
Well, let's
Good
see
talk.
what we
Glad
have in the Discord. And don't forget, if you guys want to sign up for any Stochastic membership, it comes with access to Discord. You want our lineup generator, which is going to build lineups for you, but also has access to our player projections and ownership projections. If you want to change any of those lineups, sign up using the link below. You get access to the lineup generator and access to Discord. Want to sign up for our Sims package, which has helped both myself and Eric be really profitable this year. Link below in the description box. Sign up for any of the packages at Stochastic. Malcolm Revamp wants to know, can we do a sim tonight for DK? Yes. So we can't on YouTube, but over in playback, Malcolm Revamp, Jordan's been running sims over in playback. So if you want to go jump into the playback stream, Jordan, if you wouldn't mind putting a link in there for that, we've got sims up on the stream over on the playback side of things. What was our next question here? It is from Kenny Wayne 256 wants to know you know what? Eric is absolved from the exotic player. Already gave it out. Chet Holmgren.
Gave it. Chet.
Mr. Cool Cam wants to know our favorite tournament plays at each position for FanDuel. Yeah.
For FanDuel.
Up here.
Grabbing my stuff. I picked another really great day, Greg, to play 2 sites. I really know how to pick them.
I'm telling you, here's what you should do. And it's what I do as well. I run sims for both sites. I build lineups out for it, but just for the purpose of me being able to manage those lineups, I'll only play on one site. I think that's the best way to do it, because then you're not like compromising yourself. 10 minutes to go into lock, you start freaking out that you're not able. By the way, this is like legitimate advice, not me bullshitting or doing the normal, shtick, making fun of you, whatever. You can build lineups for both, but just play on one. The audience isn't going to be upset with you. They're going to understand. You should do that. It's going to be best for your just mentality and your ability to manage lineups.
How about no, Scott?
or you could just degen and lose money when you can't update lineups.
There you go.
Your preference. I'm not going to make you do it. I'm trying to give you some friendly advice that also doubles as financial advice. I know people always say this is not financial advice. This is financial advice I'm giving you, though.
Okay.
Anyway, Mr. Cool Cam wants to know our favorite players at each position for FanDuel tournaments. And yeah, we did this before also for a question, but Damian Lillard for me at point guard.
On FanDuel, we're going to FanDuel again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is currently, it is SGA now for me.
Okay. Shooting guard is Agbaji.
Umude for me.
At where to go? Yeah, here we go.
Bruce Brown, small forward.
Small forward, that's going to be Bruce Brown Jr.
Same.
Power forward, Jimmy Butler.
Kelly Olynyk now.
And then center, DeAndre Ayton.
Thomas Bryant now.
All right. So those are top answers for FanDuel at each position. Then we got a question here from Morning Napalm. He says Pritchard projected for 22 on FanDuel versus 27 on DK.
No, he got crashed down on DK now. I don't think we are expecting him to start.
Yeah, so I think our initial projection, and Rich could speak to this better than me because he's the one doing the projections on the site, but I believe that Pritchard was initially projected with starters minutes, and now he's not. But yeah, that's what I
we haven't gotten that starting lineup to my knowledge, but I assume Horford and Porzingis start next to each other against Milwaukee. If it ends up being Pritchard, we will then we'll change it up, but I think they do want Pritchard coming off the bench.
Next question we have here is from M. Grizzly wants to know, are you boosting anyone tonight? If so, why? And how much ownership are you trying to get to? I was going to be making boosts for Walker Kessler in the Jazz situation, but now there's nothing particular on boosting. I'm just going to be running everything and seeing where I end up landing on everybody, doing a final update here for the Pistons starting lineup and all the other news that's come out. Because here's what happens. I keep starting to run sims while I'm talking, and then a new piece of news that isn't like massive news, but still matters enough for me to have to redo everything has come out. So yeah, I'm going to have to redo everything for like the Heat and the Pistons starting lineup, which I'm doing right now while we're talking, but I'm not planning on doing any boosts. How about yourself?
Bane and Kuminga, the only two that I have boosted right now.
All right. Bane and Kuminga for Eric.
Yeah.
The next question we have here is from Ethan7. He says, if I'm using the lineup generator for the 50 cent 150 max, is it best to run contrarian lineups or balanced? Oh, so he's using the lineup generator. Yeah, so the lineup generator, if you're playing in a 50-cent contest, go with chalk lineups because that is going to be a much softer field.
Correct.
Jefferson 4007 says, who the hell is Stanley Amude and why am I playing him? Yeah, the reason you're playing him is because there are a bunch of guys out for the Pistons. And we just saw this scenario. Amude played a ton of minutes, and he's not a terrible fantasy producer either. It's funny. People were all upset on the playback show that Amude didn't immediately have a bunch of fantasy points, but he was min-priced the other day, finished with 19. It was fine.
I had nothing to add.
You know who was really tilting last night? I don't know how close they were following the games. Patrick Baldwin last night.
Sure
Two
was.
fouls in 3 minutes.
Yep.
Didn't play the rest of the first half. I had him in 100%. I played 20 lineups yesterday, so it wasn't like I played 150, but still. I had him in 20 out of 20 lineups, and I was fairly sure I was dead. And then Patrick Baldwin really rallied for us in the second half to secure some min cashes. It was nice.
He had like 3 tip backs in the third quarter where it was like offensive rebounds that he just like, it was a missed shot from Jordan Poole because like everything was a missed shot from Jordan Poole yesterday, and he would just tip it back in. And so he got like so many bunny 3-pointers basically from doing that. It was beautiful.
Patrick Baldwin, he would have scored 40 fantasy points if they didn't take him out with the 2 fouls in the first quarter.
For sure. He has a motor. He had a little bit of a motor. I don't know if you had any actually analysis of him like playing, but like he obviously took 2 bad threes. I think that's why they ended up sitting him the rest of that first half, but then looked like he had a bit of a motor. I didn't pay close attention enough to rostering him against Boston on Sunday. I had some other stuff I was doing, but Tuesday was pretty interesting to watch him play. I don't completely hate him as like the 48th guy off your bench.
My only real analysis of him yesterday was that he looks like a stretched out version of Landry Shamet. Because they do look similar. He's just a weird. He looks like a weird Landry Shamet.
The Gumby version of Landry Shamet. Landry Shamet, if he hadn't been traded to like 4 different contenders in like a year. Yeah. Just the wear and tear.
It's just Landry Shamet if he didn't make it and he grew a little bit more. Next super chat we have here is from Nicky Tarantino. It's a 2v2. He wants to know, by the way, these are the goons we have to answer. We have to get, but not an invalid question from Nicky Tarantino, but this is the point of the season we're at. A 2v2 Ramsey and Nwora or Mills and Amude.
I
not
really
laughing
don't
at you,
like
Nicky
Patty
Tarantino,
Mills.
just the players we have to talk about at this point in the NBA season.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that wants to click on a share or two of Delon Wright. I'm not going to do it. Just where it's like if you go 24-24, Delon Wright is a 0.9 fantasy point per minute player. Patty Mills, we've seen this going back to like I dare to say Spurs days and date myself, but like truly, he can go out and knock down like 7-8 threes out of the middle of frickin' nowhere from time to time. But I will be just fine not having that be today. I'm not going to get to any, and done thinking about him for the rest of eternity, I would say. So the first side of that with I don't really like it was that backup Toronto point guard dude that he put down there, right?
Another player who I'm going to do my best to pronounce his first name. Jamie Us. His name is spelled
Jamie Us.
Jamie Us. I think that's, I'm guessing.
Jamie Us.
Could be. I'm going with Ramsey and Nwora.
Okay, me too.
Ramsey
Bolton, the House Bolton.
Next question here is from Rico Rod asked us top FanDuel plays by position. We did just go over that. And then Ninja Black 47 wants to know LeVert or Rozier. What's your preference between those two backcourt men? LeVert or Rozier, Eric?
I like Karis LeVert quite a bit again today. Point guard, shooting guard. The assist rate has been crazy, man. I'm not a big like last 5. He's done this or whatever. He's had 7+ assists in 7 straight. He's starting playing big minutes. I have 21% of him right now. So Karis LeVert and Rozier, I have 3% of. So yeah, it's definitely Karis LeVert for me.
LeVert for me as well. I think Rozier is a very viable contrarian option, but just if you're playing one lineup and it's between the two, I prefer Karis LeVert. Hey, I'm Drew says, hey guys, I have one spot in the 100K fadeaway. How do I approach building my lineups using the lineup generator to give me a good tournament lineup? Okay. I thought he was saying that he has one spot available in his lineup. I see.
Got it.
So he wants to know how to use the lineup generator, give him a good tournament lineup. Yeah, just select the lineup generator. And then for today, I would say build a balanced lineup and see what ends up showing up there. It's going to give you a lineup that is projected in our sims to be a plus EV lineup that's expected to be profitable. If there's any individual players that you really like, you could lock them in. If there's any players you get in the lineup you really don't like, you could change them out. But that's your best bet. Hey, I'm Drew. Just go to the lineup generator, build one balanced lineup, and see what you get there and play it. That's what I recommend.
I'll say this is the flattest exposure I can remember across my lineups in quite some time. I have a guy 64, 63, 53, 49, 42, 39, 38, 38, 37, 37. Like, I'm really flat across my lineups today.
Do you like that, or
I'm okay with it? I'm okay with it because it looks to me like the Sims tool has it where it's like, you're taking a stand on this guy, you're taking a stand on that guy, you're a little bit under on this guy. Like, I think it's doing a pretty good job of calculating. And obviously, looking at some of these lineups that are my top Sim ROI lineups, I think they look good. So I'm not going to overanalyze it too much. But yeah, wanted to at least throw out there that, you know, it's a day where if you have a stand, if there's a guy, like if you have a Desmond Bain or a Jaren Jackson Jr. or something, it is so easy to make that 1v1, 2v2 type swap off of some of the more popular plays and just know you're probably in a good spot. So I think this is a great tournament slate.
All right. Bunch of questions just came in.
Go,
Jamie
go,
Moore,
go.
Patty Mills, or Ja Ramsey? Mills because he's starting.
Mills starting.
Workouts, McDaniels or Highsmith for a last spot on FanDuel. I'm going to say Highsmith because of the amount of players that are out for the Heat. And then also they've got such a weird starting lineup. I mean, I don't like Highsmith either. I don't love McDaniels. I'll go. Actually,
go ahead.
I'm going to go McDaniels. I think his scoring is a little bit more favorable for FanDuel. McDaniels.
There you go. Good man.
Jorge, PGA Nuke of the night for Eric, and a fade of the night.
Sam Burns, and the fade will be Xander Schauffele.
All right.
Not fade fully. Not fade fully.
Sure.
I am way underweight on Xander this weekend.
Next question here. It is from Stokes, who wants to know who's the best pay up option to load up on for DraftKings, Eric? Damian Lillard.
SGA.
Yeah, I'm going to say, so in terms of pay up options, Dame is the one I have the most. By the way, I can't believe Dame isn't more popular. I thought he'd just be crazy popular on the slate, but maybe not.
Nope. And now Drew out is obviously, again, that's another defender that matters that is not going to be playing. Whereas, like, I think it was kind of the inverse with John Collins, but same kind of a deal. Same kind of a deal for sure.
I like Sabonis quite a bit as well. There, to your point, though, as I'm looking through my final exposures here, it's not like there's one pay up option who's in like 60% of lineups or 70% or anything. The one I have the most of is Dame. Dame's in 38% of my lineups, but then I have right around 30% of Sabonis, right around 30% of Fox. There's a lot of guys that are expensive that I'm just kind of spreading out on.
That's what I said. It's the flattest I can remember my lineups looking. I know we have some chalk, but like nothing that I'm going out of my way to just jam extensively.
Next question that we have for us here in Discord, it is from Ninja Black. He says he has Trenton Porter in his lineup. Noor or Agbaji is the last man, and Noor over Agbaji.
Noora.
Jay, De'Aaron Fox or Damian Lillard? I prefer Damian Lillard.
Damian Lillard.
And then JEW wants to know favorite plays for DK single entry and high-owned fades for DK single entry.
Jonte Porter, Chet Holmgren at center spots, Jordan Nwora, and I'll give you one more out of mine. Scoot Henderson. We haven't talked about him yet.
Was Scoot?
I like those are the four that are in my single entry lineup on DK.
Gotcha. Okay, so for me, favorite overall plays for DK single entry. Let's see. I think Sabonis is a reasonable high-end guy to get to in single entry. It isn't going to be quite as popular as some of the other pay-up options. Same for Cade. As far as a fade for single entry, it's kind of it's not like there's one guy that's going to be crazy popular that we could say like, hey, don't play this guy due to ownership reasons.
Same way I feel. I don't think there's that guy on this slate. I don't see anybody that I'm like, oh, you can't click on him. Like on FanDuel, you got a guy like Bruce Brown who's just rightful chalk.
I'd say I know it's the same point I made before, but it's who's the high owned guy to fade in single entry. There isn't one that exists. There isn't a guy that I think is going to be 50, 60% owned that's expensive in single entry.
I'm with you.
Like the most expensive guy that I'm most aggressively underweight to, I guess, is Duren, but he's projected, he's going to be owned in the teens. It's not like he's crazy popular or anything.
Exactly.
All right, that brings us to lock. We've answered everybody's question. Over on Playback, you guys are going to be excited about this. We have Matt Kajeski coming on. We're going to talk about brackets for tomorrow. If you guys have any bracket questions, go join us over in Playback. If you're watching in Discord, at me, we could answer your questions over the course of the show. But then also, if you guys are just hanging out in the Playback chat, throw questions in for Matt while we're talking about college hoops, and we'll have some answers for you there. So go check it out. Jordan, spam the chat with Playback stuff, and go join us over there. Thank you guys very much for watching. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. See you over on Playback.